Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the most recent Venture Forge webinar. Those of you who are regular guests will have a sharp eye and realise that I am not Andy Banks. He is happily taking a day off for his birthday, so he's donned his cap to me, and I am the webinar host today. For those of you that don't know me, I am Becca Woollin. I am Head of Seller Services, very recently appointed at Venture Forge, and I will be your host today. We've got some fantastic guests with us talking about the pros and cons of agency versus Amazon vendor managers versus in-house teams. So I'd like to give them a little introduction. Matt, do you want to kick off and introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name's Matt Briggs. I'm a senior account manager here at Venture Forge. I've been working with Amazon for the past 6 years, and I've got a variety of different experiences. So I spent 4 or 5 years working with a distributor, at which we worked with numerous AVSs across a lot of different consumer electronic brands. I've also worked in the agency space at Venture Forge, and I've also had taken time at another agency as well. So I've got a good steer on what life's like in an agency. And to add to that, I've worked direct at brand as well, and that brand were working with an agency. So hopefully I'll be able to give some useful insights during this conversation, because I've sort of seen it from all different perspectives. So yeah, it'll be good to enjoy the conversation.
Cool, thanks, Matt. Nice, rich history.
Yeah, in a short time as well.
Cool. Ashwini, welcome. Hi. Do you want to give the team on who you are and where you come from?
Sure. So I've been in the Amazon space for a really long time, long enough for, I think I can see my gray hairs here. Probably over a decade now. So I'm an ex-Amazonian, so I had the pleasure to work within Amazon as a vendor manager, and then moved out, and I've been working with brands, different industries, different scale of businesses. I've never worked with an agency though, but I worked in a consultative capacity as well, supporting businesses to scale their business on Amazon.
Perfect. Thank you very much, and thanks for joining us. And Raj, last but not least.
Always last. So yeah, I'm Raj. I'm head of Amazon. I've been working. I work for sports nutrition and grocery at the moment. I previously come from car parts. Actually, was my biggest SKU count, and then I went to consumer electronics, and now I'm in the grocery and food sector. I've been working with Amazon seller and vendor for, I think I calculated the other day, I think it's like 11, 12 years now.
Wow.
It doesn't. So I've seen how it's all changed and how vendors become a bit more like seller, and sellers just got even better.
Oh, I love that opinion. Well, thank you all for your time today, and thanks for joining us. It's really great to have you all here. I believe that our talented marketing manager is in the background, and she's got a poll for the audience for us all to see. So Whitney, if you're there, please can you, thank you. Looking forward to seeing some of these results. It's always interesting to see whether or not people are using a multitude of these operational strategies, or whether or not they're just streamlining with one. Oh, it's interesting. Okay. We've got quite a few using a combination, which is good to see. Cool, that's coming through now. Wow, okay, so quite a big lead on people using a combination, which is brilliant. Hopefully you'll find this conversation insightful. We'll come back to that when we come to the live Q&A at the end. What I would say is get your questions in so that the team can start to answer your questions at the end. We're going to go into a Q&A now with the experts on the call, and then we'll come back to the Q&A at the end. Let me just skip that. I can never figure out how to get it off my screen. So I think first and foremost, guys, one of the big questions I'm sure everyone on the channel and the webinar is waiting for is why is choosing the right Amazon management strategy crucial for a business? Don't know which one of you guys want to take that first.
I'll have a go. I think it's important to figure out this major step so you can figure out the next step, which is how to grow the business, right? So if you need some level of expertise, whether it be an agency, whether it's in-house, or even if you're using AVS, for example, AVS is not very good if you don't have someone on the inside or an agency providing the AVS what to do specifically. So in terms of management strategy, I think it's pivotal and 100% something that's worth having a think about correctly and giving yourself enough time to have a proper think and then work out the cost structures as well, etc. But I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, just to build on that, I think it's really important. Obviously, the goal for most businesses is to represent your brand well on Amazon and grow sales. So I think within a business, you need to understand what those goals are, what good looks like, and then use an AVS, an in-house team or an agency collectively to execute your plan. And obviously those decisions should be made based on skill set, what our agency's good at, what our in-house team good at, what can an AVS do for us, and also the cost structure associated with that as well. But I think what's really important is you have that clear end goal and that everything you do is shaped around that end goal. So you employ an agency or in-house team to achieve those goals in the most profitable manner, really, for your business.
Cool. Thank you, Matt. I think, we've all come from such a broad background. I've been in-house, I've been agency side. So I know that, everyone's got different knowledge across the board, haven't they? And it's about maximising that as much as possible.
Yeah. I think I've seen businesses kind of go through different stages. And I think a lot depends on what stage of the business is with relationship to Amazon, right? So for a business which is literally starting off now, say if they've just noticed some really good traction coming in from Amazon, maybe they're not selling directly, maybe somebody else is selling on behalf of them. I feel like that's the point where they should appoint someone external to kind of just evaluate the right size of business, scale of business, and then kind of take the call around how much more to invest in this. And then I think somewhere around that phase of the business also is where businesses kind of go ahead and take this call about, do we work directly? Do we work through our wholesale partners? Do we work through some, marketplace aggregator, or do we work 1P on Amazon? So there's a lot of, I think, decision making happening at the stage when you start seeing traction for your business without actually engaging with Amazon yourself in any capacity. And that's when I feel like a consultant or an external stakeholder actually brings in that really non-biased opinion about the business, purely data-driven exercise. This is the demand we see. This is how your kind of financials look like. This is where we think you are, and this is where you need to go forward. So I really see meaning in bringing an external stakeholder at that particular stage. And then the choice that you make, depending on the choice that you make on which mode of operations to work with, then you would eventually obviously go on to build that team either internally or externally. So I think there's this one tipping point for all the businesses where I think the direction changes as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. We have actually had a question in the box already, which I think would be really great to clear off now. One of the questions that's come through is, what is AVS? So that is Amazon Vendor Services. But do you guys want to explain exactly what it means to have an AVS? Because there is a difference between having an AVS and a vendor manager. Some people will have a better experience with an AVS than others. And we've literally just had a conversation before this call about having a great AVS versus a terrible AVS. So do you guys want to explain kind of what is an AVS?
Yeah, I can tee up with a bit of an explanation, and we can sort of drill into the pros and cons of it. But it's quite a contentious conversation in a lot of instances. So yeah, to summarise, AVS is Amazon Vendor Services. It's a point of contact within Amazon that you pay for. And their role is to support you with the day-to-day running of the account. And then the second part of their role is to help you strategically grow the account in the long term, which is probably going to be up for debate when we go into questions about this. Typically, you'll pay a flat fee or be built into your terms agreements with Amazon. So you'll pay between 3 or even up to 7% of your contract costs for the AVS. And they're helping you grow on Amazon or helping support your day-to-day business. I recognise saying grow on Amazon is quite a controversial thing to say, because their role is to support your business, not necessarily to grow it. But I think Raj made an interesting point earlier that it's really important that you have clear sort of deliverables with your AVS and you hold them to account. If you don't, it can sort of just drift into the abyss. But yeah, that's
I think. Yeah, no, I think Matt kind of summarized it beautifully, right? So it is, it is what Matt said. I think just to add to that, so AVS no more is one person. It's a service that Amazon is providing to the brands, vendors who are signing up to that particular. I'm calling it a program. It's a service, basically, right? It used to be back in the day, like one person, like a brand specialist, right? But now it's no more just one person. It's a team of people trying to support the business. I do see value in the program, despite my my challenges and my own personal opinion of the program. There is definitely value in that program. But it depends on what you're lacking internally in your business. I think data is one real value add that comes out of this vendor services. And then there are times if you happen to find a really good kind of AVS team supporting you, then they kind of actually roll up their sleeves, start helping you with operational issues. Also, obviously, come up with some really plans which are more kind of, I feel like saying tailored to your business, but maybe it's not tailored, but at least more suitable to your business and things like that. So yeah, it's more become a service than this one brand specialist who's supporting your business. And yeah, everyone goes through their own kind of challenges depending on who the individual or who the team is supporting you. But yeah, I do see value in the program.
Do you think that the key to having a successful vendor relationship is that you have someone in-house that holds the vendor services accountable?
Yes. So and this is where I feel like this is a program or a service which very evolved businesses should kind of look like. They should be the ones kind of looking for this service, because the moment you start signing up to this service, then you need someone internally in your business as well to have that engagement going on and to drive that engagement as well. And then this individual also needs to then be aware of what are the kind of things that I can reach out to them, how to make the most value out of that service as well. If you get in somebody completely new to the program, new to the service, they literally just take what Amazon's giving them and not know what to ask, when to ask, and how much to ask for. And that's why, that's the stage where I would say that your business, I would call a business which is slightly more evolved, to then be looking at the service and also have an in-house person then talking to the AVS.
Perfect. Thank you. Matt, anything to add on that?
I think so my experience with AVS has been quite varied, to be honest. So I think, as we sort of alluded to, it depends on what stage of your journey you're at with Amazon and actually what you want to get out of your AVS. So when I talk about my past in distribution, when we had an AVS, we paid a lot of money for them. And to be quite honest, when we were trying to sort of explain that value back to the business, that didn't really do a lot for us, because the challenges that we were having were to do with cost price increase and things like that. And yes, the AVS could give us a segue to the vendor manager, but ultimately they couldn't make the cost price increase. We had to speak to the vendor. I do see value in the program in terms of they gave us access to limited deal slots for Prime Day, for example, that helped us push those through. You can submit them through VC, but as people probably know, you can submit deals. They look like they're going to be approved, and then they don't go live or something goes wrong. So that point of escalation is really important. And also, in terms of operational execution, so if you're thinking about getting a flex node, or you're going to consolidate supply chain into picks, having an AVS at that point can help sort of move that process along. And as Ashwini said, data points, like they'll send you IDQ data, they'll send you sales data, different category data. Well, not so much category data, but they'll give you sort of little tips, because I can't really say category data. Because vendor, as everyone will probably know, has fairly limited data versus seller. They are trying to improve that at the moment with the way they change Vendor Central, but I think they withhold that data for their own benefit in a lot of instances, to be honest.
I would say, as someone who's just been appointed head of seller, we do have much better reporting on the seller side of the business, not to be biased. Right, I'm going to just throw a question over to you, and hopefully this doesn't catch you in the headlights. What would you say the key advantages are to working in-house versus with a vendor managed services or with an agency?
Oh God, that's a bit of a
How long have we got?
Look, AVS. I wanted to say with AVS, I think that the most important thing is never going to be a silver bullet.
Yeah.
Right? You know, everyone will, Amazon will sell AVS to you as a silver bullet. They're not suddenly going to take your business, do all your content for you, do your titles, bullet points, and suddenly start ranking you organically for you. It just doesn't work, right? And if we're talking about advantages, is the advantage of AVS is to be able to have advantage of AVS, you need someone in-house to be able to tell AVS, this is what I want you to do. And that's the key here, right? Is if they were able to pull the levers for you, because essentially they're a bum on a seat that works at Amazon, and they have access to data and modules that you simply don't. So they'll be able to unlock things or fix things. I mean, recently so the one thing that's annoyed me the most is the cases that are being handled are all offshore at the moment, and the quality of the person on the other side of the case has dramatically decreased over the last like half a decade. So, you know, if we take that for example, say if I wanted to change some key aspects or a category or nodes or something on a product or an ASIN, it's easier. This is easier to do through an AVS because you can speak to someone. See what I mean? And you can escalate with a certain person instead of a case which goes around the circle. Anyone here on the webinar will understand. You send a case, it will go around the circle, about 10 different people. They all ask the same question. It feels like they don't bother reading the previous replies. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, to answer the original question, the advantages really depend on your strategy.
Yeah.
Is Amazon important to you first and foremost, or your business? And do you have buy-in from the people that are at the top, the SLT teams, your senior leadership teams? You need at least one person in-house, at least. Even if you have an agency, you still need one person in-house to direct the agency or the AVS or a combination of both to achieve the goal that you have set out.
I couldn't agree more. I think our jobs, Matt, are so much easier once we've got someone on the other side just to support us. But also that you can have fluid conversations with someone in brand. Because I think that's one of the challenges as an agency. We'll never understand your brand as much as you do if we've got no one to talk to on the other side. And I do think that's key for success for Amazon, is making sure that people understand the product as much as people like yourselves, Raj, who love the brand and are in the brand, as long as we're having the same kind of awareness of the product.
Yeah, look, I agree. I mean,
good.
Sorry, I just want a final thing on AVS. It massively depends on who you get, because one person can have a fantastic experience. And as Raj said, Amazon vendor have moved into a pan-EU model now. So rather than one vendor I worked with in the past had like 7 different AVSs for all the different territories, which was a bit ridiculous. Now you have one AVS, one VM in Europe in most instances. And as Raj alluded to, they're offshoring quite a lot of these services for cheaper labour costs, and that is affecting the service. Fortunately for me at the moment, I'm working with some AVSs based in the UK, so the service level is good, but there's no guarantee with that. So I'd probably, if you're talking to Amazon about AVS, make sure you know who you're going to get, where they're going to be based, and there's clear KPIs in place.
Yeah, I do.
Great again, but it's an interesting conversation.
I feel like we should have gone out with this webinar with a big caveat of, if you have a great AVS, good for you. What do you think then? Go on, Raj, sorry.
I think it's really true what you say there, and the thing I think everyone needs to understand that doesn't have an AVS is, if you have an AVS, you'll likely probably only have them for 12 months.
Yeah.
And then they'll move on, and then you have to build your relationship again with a new AVS. That's important. I think an important fact that you should know if you're signing up to AVS.
Yeah, perfect. Ashwini,
I think that's true for a lot of roles at Amazon. There is quite a bit of churn of even the vendor managers, and definitely at the AVS level. Yes, we've also seen that the max you get to work with an individual is 12 months, and then you see someone new come into the role. Yeah.
On the flip side then, what do you think are the disadvantages of having someone only in-house?
Oh, I feel like technology is, I think, one of the key things that stands out for me, what the value add that agencies bring in, right? And yeah, with that, I would say, like, obviously access to data, access to other, like forecasting, for example, that comes to my mind, which I don't think a lot of in-house folks, or for that matter, brands themselves have been able to crack it, right? So yeah, definitely, I would say the processes, the technology, and the data. For me, these three things kind of are very key value add that comes from working with agencies.
Yeah. I think for me as well, it's an agency, as we sort of alluded to earlier, can give you an objective view of the business. If you work in-house, you purely work on that one brand or set of brands all the time, and your thoughts and opinions are probably maybe not always based on data or not objective, and you'll probably think things just because it's worked in the past when actually the market data or data on Amazon is telling you differently. As well as also an element of, if you're an internal account manager at a business, sometimes you won't want to challenge your seniors to try and push the business forward. Whereas if you work with an agency who come in and do a project and they look at all the data and they make data-driven decisions, they can actually sort of push you in the direction you need to go. I can think of a situation recently where I've been talking to an internal account manager who's been saying a lot of the similar things to what I've been saying, but the way we've gone in and presented data and sort of said it, having that second opinion does help sort of push your point across in certain scenarios.
Yeah, I think there's generally, as I said in the beginning, right, a lot depends on the stage of the business, right, where it is in its Amazon journey. And if the business consciously is aware that they don't have the subject matter expertise at that point in time, then definitely an agency partner could really help in making that decision. In fact, a lot of agencies that I've worked with in the past have actually come in and said, you need to hire someone internally to be able to kind of work with us, engage with us, because they also kind of help in unlocking business opportunities, budgets, investments, etc., right? Because someone internally who understands the business also then kind of partners really well with the agency. So yeah, as I said, a lot depends on which stage the business is. Earlier stages, definitely hands down, I feel like an external consultant, an agency, the kind of value add they bring in is phenomenal. And I think over the time, you would end up having an in-house expert the more you want to scale that business. Yeah.
I think knowledge plays a really big part as well, doesn't it? Because from an agency point of view, we are getting new team members coming in, bringing new ideas. We've got contacts in the net, in our networks. We're learning about Amazon all the time. We're sat waiting for the next algorithm change, as sad as that sounds. So from an agency perspective, you've got a lot of knowledge sat there where you might have a contact that's only worked in Amazon for 2 years, but sat behind that. I mean, look at the amount of years of Amazon we've got between all of us on the call today. You've got that extra knowledge, which I think is really, really beneficial to in-house teams to support.
Definitely, because the way, I don't think I would have said this 10 years back, but the way the Amazon business is evolving, it's no more just working with Amazon. It's like, and I think Raj would kind of be able to relate to this as well, that it's almost as if brands and businesses are building an ecosystem of Amazon, right? It's tech stack, it's teams, it's everything. It's external data sources, stakeholders. Like there's like an entire ecosystem which is getting built. So much to the extent that I feel like saying that I see Amazon kind of requiring all of these in addition to what the businesses go on to build for their e-commerce business, right? Because it's the same kind of investment. You're talking about advertising, you're talking about tech stacks, you're talking about data, people, everything, right? So it's an ecosystem in itself. And I think that level of knowledge, that level of unlocking the investment, I feel like subject matter expertise actually sits with the agencies to then come in and say, you know what, it's not just one vendor central dashboard. Guys, you need all of this information to take the right business calls. Yeah.
I think as well, as we talked about knowledge, I think trying to recruit for an internal team is probably going to become increasingly difficult. Amazon as a channel is really, really important now to a lot of businesses. We were just talking about the big players taking part in Prime Day this year and potential a brand like Nike going back to Amazon. All these brands want to play on Amazon and want to build an in-house team of 4 or 5 people. There's a finite amount of resource, so it's actually quite hard to recruit the right people and make that cost effective at the same time. So yeah, I think there's room for everyone within the ecosystem, but I think what's really important is everyone knows what's expected and what their role is. So an agency can act as an extension of your team and doesn't have a conflict of interest with your team, because when I've been in brand in the past, it's like, well, why is the agency doing the job that I'm meant to be doing? So I think it's really important that those roles and responsibilities are outlined and all the expectations are really clear. But as we said, with an agency, you kill a lot of birds with one stone, because you have different levels of experience across vendor and seller. You have advertising specialists, you have creative resource, software stack to support content, SEO. So particularly for those people at the start of the journey, like Ashwini said, an agency is probably invaluable. And then as you sort of mature, an agency can continue to service in one or two capacities, but can also give you that objective consultative view, which helps push your business forward if you come to sort of a plateau. So yeah,
I think one of the important things we're missing here is the simple thing of cost.
Yeah.
Just cost. You're small, you're not going to be able to probably afford to have a full Amazon in-house. So you need agencies. It's as simple as that. You know, if you're missing agencies are cheaper than something that you can afford now, or maybe you don't have the budgets in place. And as you get bigger, as the Amazon business becomes bigger, then suddenly you can have different conversations at higher levels, or even at business board levels, or even if you're the MD on this now, you have more, you'll be able to invest more because more's coming in.
Yeah.
I think one very interesting, sorry, Becca, I was just going to say, the point around roles responsibilities, which Matt mentioned, was super interesting, because I feel like over the course of the years, even the landscape within agencies have become so evolved. Like different agencies are coming in to support the business in different capacities. I remember in one of the businesses, we kind of just outsourced all of the operational tasks that were coming in as part of our strategy with Amazon, and we wanted that support. And then in a different business, we wanted, say, just advertising support. In a different business, we wanted kind of more support in making strategic decisions, so more expertise from that standpoint. So I feel like even within the agency space, the landscape has evolved. There are different agencies supporting the business in different capacities. And then obviously then having that real good clarity of what you want to get done from the team in-house and what you want to get done from the agencies, and of course then the cost piece of also, I mean, if you're working with unlimited budget, then why not just have everyone support the business? But of course nobody's working with unlimited budget either. So then really evaluating what is that value add happening in which kind of activities, and what to get help for.
I definitely think that the points that you and Raj have kind of highlighted around tech is one of the big things that I do think that people just starting in their Amazon journey may have not put into consideration. For context from our side of the business, you know, we have reporting software, we have ads software, we have, help me out, market tracking software, we've got SEO software, we've got designers coming out of our ears, you know. So when you're starting on an Amazon journey, it's going to be very costly if you want to go and invest in all that yourself. So I think it's a really good call out, Raj, that, you know, for them first few years, agency might be one of the best solutions for you to support.
Absolutely, and all of that is useless unless there's someone on the inside of a business that knows what they're doing. Right? Let's be honest, you can have all the levers that you can pull, but if you don't know which ones to pull at what time, you're never going to win.
Yeah, I think someone in-house with the knowledge of the product, they're never going to be able to as an agency, we're never going to be able to match that, because we're not there learning alongside you all the time. But I think as much as that insight can be shared as possible for success is the key for a really strong business.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And that's probably what we could argue is one of the downsides of an agency. An agency will never know the product as well as an internal team. They won't understand the operational processes as well, particularly in the beginning of your relationship. And they won't understand what the actual blockers are. There needs to be someone internally to sort of be that bridge between the agency and SLT, people making decisions on strategy. So the agency, when they're sort of putting their ideas together, can pitch it at the right level, because as Raj has said, it is pointless. If you don't have anyone in the team, unless the agency have agreed to actually be your whole team, I don't know what that would look like, and it's probably very expensive. It would be quite challenging.
No, definitely. I want to kind of bring this to, and I'm going to make a really difficult question here, so I'm hoping you guys are prepped for this. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to be able to think about this. How should a brand then make the decision between in-house team, AVS, agency resource? Can they all work in harmony together? Could you work with all three? Or I know we've talked a lot about being the different stages of your journey would dependent on which, if you were starting an Amazon business today, what would you guys choose? How would you start your journeys from day one?
I could take a bit of this, actually. If I was going to start again and I owned a business, I worked for a business, I think the first and foremost thing you should do is take a step back. And I'm assuming that there's a person within the business that understands Amazon at this point. And I'd expect them, well, if that was me, I would take a step back and have a look at what do I have to play with? Do I have master data? Do I have assets? Do I have titles, bullet points? Do I have any existing ASINs? Is my brand represented on Amazon? Is it represented badly? And do I need to spend some time doing some clear up, merging and duplicate listings? So you need to kind of essentially find the lay of the land and figure out, okay, this is where I stand right now. Because most brands, if I ever speak to someone and they say, oh, I'm not on Amazon. And I was like, yeah, I bet you're being sold on Amazon though, by someone very small that's representing your brand with a picture they've taken in their bedroom.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. It's really important to kind of figure out your lay of the land. And then from there you go, okay, this is what I need to fix. Now, how do I go about fixing it? Do I need resource? Do I not? Can I do most of it myself? Do I need X, Y, Z? It's really important to just sometimes take that step back and have a little look.
No, brilliant. I definitely agree that, you've got to know where you want to be, but you also need to know where you are. Yeah. Matt, Ashwini, anything that you'd want to build on that?
I'm just thinking.
No, I think.
I'm thinking about if I was to start a business, you're going to love this, Becca, as well. But if I was to start a business on Amazon, I'd probably launch on Seller, and I'd make sure I do the basics extremely well. So things like Raj has mentioned, make sure your product's set up correctly with all the correct barcodes, no duplicate listings. Yeah. Make sure that you've got all your image gallery, video content, SEO optimization done, and that you've got some reviews, your retail ready. At that point, once I'd set all that, well, I'd probably use an agency to set that up if I was on my own, just because they would have access to multiple resources. I would then rely probably on an agency in the short term to run my ads. And as I started to scale, I would try and bring a team in to support that growth. And then depending on the product set and ASP, I would obviously then move to a vendor account and try and trade. I'll trade on vendor. If I was trading on vendor, and I would make that decision based on profitability probably. So if I was more profitable on vendor and my pricing within the channel allowed it, I would trade on vendor to try and sort of scale the business outwards into Europe. And at that point, I probably would work with an AVS when it made sense and I knew I could get ROI on it, because everything you do with Amazon vendor has to be logical and has to have a return on investment. So I think, that's how I'd approach it if I was to start from scratch at the moment. So for everyone in the sort of ecosystem.
Yeah, I think, if you're starting off, especially if you're like an entrepreneur yourself trying to launch a product on Amazon, Seller definitely, hands down, is the way to go ahead. And I feel like at that point in time, a lot of entrepreneurs also kind of try to bootstrap things themselves. So they then go on to this journey of trying to do everything themselves. And the beauty of, I feel like, Amazon Seller Central is that a lot of information is very democratized. There's so much information online that I feel like even kids these days could literally like get a t-shirt, print, read everything about Amazon. And to start off, they can start off on their own, definitely. And then it all depends on how much you want to scale it. And that's when I think what Raj was mentioning definitely comes into the picture, right? Like that bit of SWOT analysis piece about what are the strengths, where do I need to take this business, what are the key drivers? Do I have the capabilities to drive that business myself? I know quite a few of the folks who actually to this date manage advertising themselves because they have limited product, they think they can do it, and they're fine, they're doing it really well. But what happens if you're talking about not couples of tens of products, but you're talking about thousands of products? And definitely that's when the complexity starts. That's when you know that it cannot be done in-house. It's going to eat into a lot of your time, etc. And skill sets and capabilities, of course. So yeah, I think, to begin with, definitely I would say try to do it yourself, because I feel like to even have that educated discussion with the agency, you need to know the business really well yourself. So definitely start by doing it yourself. And then at some point you would realize that, yes, to the scale that I want to grow the business, I need more expertise. And that is where I was saying about the tech piece.
Yeah.
Especially on the advertising side of things, I feel like the landscape has become so much automated, isn't it? Like people were doing, at one point in time, I did it myself. I designed the campaigns myself. I was bidding it myself manually. And then you just realize that no, like for the kind of results you wanted to be more automated. And now these days, of course, AI driven and all of those pieces as well. So yeah, I think businesses at some point in time would need to bring in such tech expertise.
I think it's really fair. When I worked in-house, I was the same as you, Ashwini. I was creating campaigns myself. I was changing bids myself. Our paid ads managers are doing thousands of ad changes per minute just through the software that we've got. That's how competitive Amazon has been in the last 9 years. I also have the grey hairs, Ashwini, to prove it. And so the market has moved on that the in-house team may be left behind a little bit because of how much the market and everything around us is moving on. You need to have that kind of relationship between the two. But from a performance point of view, how would you then, or what metrics would you use to hold someone like an agency to account or an AVS to account? Obviously, Raj, in-house, you're going to have different conversations because you're going to be held to your board or to your own metrics or your own KPIs. But how do you think that, what are the most critical metrics to be looking at to make sure that what you're getting is what you're paying for?
Oh God.
Good reaction to a question.
I think at the KPIs, there is no one set of KPIs that fits all.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a thing out there. If you're looking at KPIs for AVS, you need to be making sure that you're getting responded to within a time frame. They actually, an AVS essentially is like an agency, but just a different version, Amazon focused essentially only. The issue is that these people are looking after loads of different people. Do you know what I mean? So an agency's got, 50, 60 vendors. AVS probably has about 20, depends how senior they are. So you're fighting for their time. So you need to make sure that they're actually giving you their time. So if you ask them to have some tasks or load anything or load a promo or anything like that, you need to say to them, I want this done by end of today or end of week or end of day. And you just need to, it's hard to keep track of those things, but you can do. But, essentially, you're paying them for a service, right? And you expect a service. You can't go to your agency or your AVS and say, oh, sales are down. Can you fix it? Do you know what I mean? It's more, okay, we understand sales are down. This is what I'm going to ask AVS and my agency to do. They need to do it within a certain time frame, so then I can fix my own problem. To me, it's a tough one to answer that question.
I think just to build on that, Raj, with AVS, what I found to be quite effective is having a tracker, whether they put it together or you put it together. So you have all the tasks that they're working on with the owners, with the actions, and with a time frame on there. And it's on you then to hold them to account to that and make sure that you're calling them out and putting it in writing. Because I say putting in writing because it's quite a good thing to have in your back pocket when you then get to terms discussions later in the year. Because if your AVS has been a bit rubbish, you can then get out your spreadsheet where everything was late or things hadn't been done, and you can sort of highlight that as a way to try and get your costs down or to try and get something more out of Amazon. But I think in terms of KPIs, there's not KPIs like, oh, we need to hit a certain margin number. It's more about getting that service level, getting them to deliver on what they say they're going to do and making sure that they follow up on it, to be honest. And then back to KPIs from an agency point of view, I guess that depends on the brand and what they want to achieve, because we work with brands who will want a ROAS, for example. That is their North Star. They want to hit a certain ROAS so they know they're profitable. Whereas we work with other brands who want to build brand awareness and grow sales overall on Amazon. So what we try and push towards is new to brand sales or a TACOS rather than a ROAS metric. So I think it depends what that brand wants from an agency as to what metrics you put in place. Naturally, you want to make sure you're growing and you want to make sure you're growing profitably. But if your goal is to dominate a category and you're pretty new to that category, then you're going to have to overinvest in ads and drive new to brand to get that organic rank. So I think it's quite difficult to pin down certain KPIs just blanket level.
Cool. So I think 2 big takeouts I'm taking from today is know what your strategy is and where you want to go, and then hold people to account. See, that's fair. big accountability piece for Amazon agencies, AVS, and internal teams, definitely.
That's an interesting point, though, because I think a lot of brands come to agencies for a steer on what the goal should be, but I think it's once you've agreed those goals, then sticking to them and having actual measurables against it, because it's so easy to have a conversation, say a lot of things and be like, this is what we're going to do, and then things will pivot within a week or things will pivot within 2 weeks, and then the conversation completely changes, and you're not really, you sort of get caught in the weeds, and you've sort of lost sight of that long-term growth strategy you probably set out in the first instance. So yeah,
I think something that's pretty interesting, right? I think everyone on the call should take away is a good, like, old school example, right? Is how to deal with AVS or an agency or is if you opened up a shop on the high street yourselves, right? And at what point would you ask someone to come and help you build the shop or design the shop? See what I mean? You've got to have a plan in place. You've got to know where shelves are going to go, or where your tools are going to go, or where certain products are going to go. And after you have that in place, you can get an agency / AVS in a term to come into the shop and do it all for you.
It's nice. I think about it as a live storefront, as almost bricks and mortar.
Yeah. I just want to add to that. So the AVS service, right? It's not, I don't know how it is for the other businesses. From the ones that I have seen, it's no more a service or whatever, a person that you can actually hold accountable to your results, right? It's again the kind of support that you can expect from them. And then, as I think Raj, one of Matt or Raj was saying about having process expectations and what level of support and SLAs and things like that. So kind of before signing up the program, clearly understand what Amazon how this AVS program can support you, and then ask for the support that you need from them. And then set, maybe the measure just could be that SLA seems like one of the key measures for me, that right time responses, there's a level of support that you would be doing for us during the deal season. This is what we're expecting, etc. They're not taking responsibility for business delivery. At least that's what I have seen. Can we hold them accountable? Maybe. Then later in a QBR, you can talk to them about, hey, we were expecting this much business growth. It's not happening. What's the deal? And again, that would result into a certain data deep dive and stuff like that. But they're not going to take responsibility for growing the business. Whereas I feel like with an agency, you can have a very different conversation in the nature of support that you're expecting. For example, a full service, I don't know, these days there are these full service management agencies. They would take up exactly the same KPIs and goals that you are aligning with your stakeholders internally. And that's where I would say the in-house person should be, I would say, smart enough in aligning those goals, because you can't be tracking to one and you can't have your agency doing the other thing, right? So yeah, I think that's where the discussion between the agency and the in-house person changes, and the discussion with the AVS and the in-house person changes. And that's why I feel like saying that if you think you can do everything that the AVS service offers can be done in-house, and I would say take it in-house, unless until it's like a terms discussion, because in many of these terms discussion these days, literally, I think Amazon is presenting the AVS program as one of the mandatory programs that you have to sign up to. because the vendor manager does not have the time to support you. Like these days, I think the vendor manager's count is just lessening over the time, at least from what I'm seeing. So yeah, they wouldn't be giving you the same kind of time that they were giving you probably 5 years back or something. So then if you want to be able to speak and reach out to somebody in Amazon just for your own peace of mind, I think that's where the AVS piece comes in. But it's not, you cannot hold them accountable for your business. But an agency, of course, you can, if you're aligning these goals beforehand with them. For the in-house folks, and I don't know if Raj, please jump in, and I don't know if you have a different opinion here. I feel like in many businesses, the KPIs are still very commercial driven. There is a certain sales that you're trying to hit. Like most of the businesses are still in that traditional mindset. So elements like ROAS and tacos and something, it's basically for the individual who's driving the business to then kind of link up these different metrics to their actual KPI, which they're going to get measured on. So it's still very commercial driven. Raj, how is it for you? Like, any opinion here from your side? It'll be interesting for me to hear as well.
I mean, look, I have a strong opinion on things like this. It goes back to mindset, right? If you an e-com business, or let's say you're a traditional bricks and mortar business, or you've been doing your traditional ways for the last 50 years or 10 years, to run an e-com side of a business requires a mindset shift, right? You can't.
Yeah.
Yes, you're talking about sales, the normal stuff, but
yeah.
What about if there's no one in-house going, okay, we need to pay attention to ROAS, TACOS, conversion rate, traffic. If there's no one telling you that in-house, then you're already losing the game.
Exactly. And there's also a lot about what is the, like certain things are like basically the actions that you need to take. They're more like, I think back in the Amazon days, we used to talk about input metrics and output metrics. Sales is basically a final output. And then things like how do you increase your traffic? How do you increase your conversion? How do you increase your average order value? The typical e-commerce formula is all on the individual who's driving that business. And of course, then educating internally, saying this is how we're trying to influence the business, and then hence growing the business, right? And that's where I feel like the agency in-house partnership is really, really important. Then you align on saying, these are the business drivers, and this is what we need to hit in order for us to hit that final goal.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, guys. We're going to just transition to some of the questions. We've got quite a lot of questions. You guys have obviously sparked some real interest in the comments. So we'll answer some of these questions live. To those of you that are watching, any questions that we don't answer live today, our team will reach out and get you get your answers through to you, or arrange a call between people just to support. So first and foremost, I'm going to take this question from Graham. Talking to other sellers on Amazon, it would appear there's no consistent structure in how AVS is charged. I've seen a wide variation in cost depending on who I speak to, and how would we know if we are getting good value or being overcharged for the service? I think this is a really great question.
Interesting.
I can start there. I think that's another benefit of an agency, because we can do industry benchmarking, because we have access to see what various people are sort of being charged for AVS. So my first experience with AVS was a 150k flat fee. I've then been at other places where they're paying 4% of total PCOGs, and if you do the maths on that, it's a lot of money. So over a couple of $100,000. I think it all depends on the size of the business. So a business I know over the minute, or a smaller business with a percentage accrual, but if you take the cash value, it's less than 100k. So I'd agree there's no consistency on what people are being charged. I think the best way to understand what a typical sort of value to be charged is by comparing with others in the industry and talking to other people at brands, to be honest, or an agency.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think that you will be, when you're trying to negotiate AVS, it will be part of your annual negotiations, most likely. And the service, so they used to have a light service and a full service years ago, and now it's just one pan-European service. So, in essence, it sounds silly, but the service you'll get once you're in there is the same if you pay more or less. So the aim of the game is to pay as less as possible because it's the same thing. Do you know what I mean? There's no benefit of paying more for the service. So essentially, negotiate the hell out of it.
Good tip as we're about to come into terms negotiations. Ashwini, anything to add on that?
No, I think Matt and Raj have said whatever I had on mind, right? I think one element probably I would like to add is there's a bit of an evaluation needed about how much are you willing to pay for a service like that. I think I've not seen businesses do that evaluation, right? It mostly comes on from Amazon saying, hey, for this program, you have to sign up by whatever X percentage or the flat fee, however you're trying to negotiate. And I think this is where I would like to take a step back and be like, no, tell me exactly what is the service I'm getting. And if I can get that for a much lesser price through other sources, then I would rather sign up to that than the AVS program.
Yeah, I do think that we've seen I've been with VentureForge for 4 years, we've seen people who are happy to pay whatever fee for AVS just because they've got someone at Amazon to speak to. So I do think it's definitely how much it's worth to you as a business, definitely. I'm going to take another one here from the audience. So this is from Sean. What if the agency doesn't have product or market knowledge? How would we approach this?
I can start. So product knowledge is fine, right? Like that probably I feel like the onus lies on both parties, so the agencies to kind of show interest and obviously for the in-house folks to kind of build that knowledge. Yeah, but if there's no market or category knowledge, I would be really apprehensive of partnering with that agency. I think one of the key things that we try to find out is, have they worked in the similar categories? Who have they worked with? Sometimes we've also kind of reached out to seek testimonials, references from industries in general, like other folks from in the industries in general. So yeah, please be very, very careful in which agency you choose to work with, because not many businesses change the agencies if they have a really good equation going on. So you're actually signing up to a long-term partnership here.
Fantastic.
And I think that another thing here is there are agencies that are smaller and that are building themselves, but they have a ton of experience. So one of the things I would do also is just have a look at the people working at the agency and the owners and see what their actual experience looks like. I mean, everyone can say something, but you need to actually have been doing it or done it for a certain amount of years to be able to advise on it.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've tested personally in the past, that if you're not sure about the agency, and say if the agency is new, but you still want to take a bet with them because sometimes you just vibe with the people. I know it sounds a little silly, but sometimes it makes a difference. Like you kind of just know from maybe their experience or just the interest that they've shown in your business. Then you kind of do some sort of a short-term agreements with them to kind of then see in the short term how does it work, and then probably sign a more kind of a long-term contracts with them, like test it out if you're really keen on giving someone a new chance there. Yeah,
I hope that answered your question, Sean. Another one here from the audience. This will be a really interesting one to hear your answers on, guys. So hopefully you're similarly aligned. What tech is essential to run your Amazon business in-house?
Wow.
Define essential, but I think for me, you definitely need some sort of reporting tool, because I've been in various roles where you're pulling data from multiple data sources, putting them into a massive Excel, and it takes people hours, when there's actually solutions out there nowadays where it links into the API and you've got everything that you need there and all the key metrics solved. I think if you're not using an agency, some sort of advertising software is essential. Like we've alluded to here, the machine learning involved in those apps is making thousands of changes to campaigns and bids on a day to make your advertising more efficient. So I'd steer towards that. And depending on how you do your content and what your internal setup is, I would be having a look for some of the software that does SEO and content optimization as well. They're probably the key three I would be thinking about. And probably a tool like Helium 10 or Jungle Scout for a bit of market data or a bit of insight.
I think that's really, really good points, Matt. And, if you're talking about essential, just basic stuff, right? Again, I'll come back to how much can you afford?
Yeah.
Right? some of it can be really expensive. But some of the things you mentioned, like Jungle Scan, H10, is a good place to start.
Yeah.
They're not really expensive for someone small, and then you can scale up to something like bigger packages if you're bigger. But H10 is a good place, and they have what I like about H10 is they've got great training as well, that you can learn a bunch about Amazon and fill in some gaps. So, yeah, I'll tell you that for me is something that everyone should consider as a minimum.
Cool, fantastic. Thank you, guys. We're probably coming up to our last question here, so I feel like this is quite a poignant one. How would you approach the issue of not getting the support you're paying for with your AVS manager? We're constantly chasing them and just not getting the information or data back.
I think I can take this one. So Amazon actually runs annual surveys for folks who have signed up to an AVS service and takes feedback on the AVS service. So definitely that is the moment to kind of raise all the concerns and questions you have. Otherwise, definitely escalate the matter to your vendor manager and then kind of let them know specifically what is the support that you'll be looking for and why has that not happened. It does get taken seriously. It's not like they ignore it. So yeah, those are the two avenues.
Yeah, the AVS team, you'll have an AVS, Becca, and they will be part of an AVS team, which will have an AVS manager. You need to, if you're really that unhappy, get a meeting or the email address of the manager of the AVS team and ask them to address your concerns. Because effectively, it doesn't matter how much you're paying, you're not getting what you're paying for.
Yeah, it's still a service at the end of the day.
Exactly.
It comes back to the points that we've kind of raised throughout the whole of the webinar. You've got to hold people account, and unfortunately, sometimes the client or the brand has to be the people driving that, and really holding the team accountable.
Mm.
Cool. Well, sorry, we're not going to get to all the questions. There are quite a few left, so I'm sure that Whitney and the team will be picking them up. Thank you, Raj and Ashwini and Matt, of course, for a great webinar today. I feel like it's been a really, really thorough conversation. We're all sat here saying if we had the money, we would potentially work with all three and we'd have all the tech we wanted. I did think, Raj, at one point when you were saying if I was starting from scratch, you were going to say you wouldn't work on Amazon. So I was preparing for that. So I'm glad that's not where it went. I just want to say a really big thank you to everyone that's here today, that's attended. Thank you for coming and spending your morning with us. I hope you're all ready for a nice big cup of tea. Enjoy the rest of your days. Thank you again for all your support, and we'll catch up with you all soon. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.